Hello and welcome to my review of the brand new plastic Aspect Warriors, the Howling Banshees. Now at the moment, October 2019, the only way to get them is through the Blood of the Phoenix box set, which will cost you £140. It's a huge amount of money. I think it's sort of like £40 more than it should be, and you've got a lot of old models in there as well that are, you know, 6 to 20 years old. I think the Falcon is 1996 and the Viper's 97. Over 20-year-old models in there. Nonetheless, Games Workshop have chosen to put them in there. I would have preferred newer models in there. I would have preferred both of the sides to have new models. But we are where we are. I can see this box set of 5 being probably £30 or 25. It's going to be interesting. I think it's going to be £30 though. What we're going to do is we're going to have a detailed look at all of these models. Then we're going to go through some size comparisons with a plethora of Eldar and Dark Eldar models that I've managed to find from places. I've even got some, I think they're like 3rd edition Howling Banshees that I painted. Again, over 20 years ago. So let's have a look at these miniature by miniature. Now, the one thing that's important, well, we're going to look at the spare parts as well, by the way, but the one thing that's important that I need to say straight away is, although you get 5 models, for both the Drukhari and for these Howling Banshees, you get this little thing. What is this? It's kind of some kind of like little totem thing. Shrine totem thing, comes with its own base. I don't even know what it is. It's nothing about it in the rules. You could probably just put it on your battlefield and have it as you know, part of your Eldar scenery, but I've just put it on a base. It could be just like an objective marker. That's cool. I'm up for that. I'm up for them releasing objective markers in every single set, as long as it obviously doesn't bump up the price of these box sets, then that's cool. But I just thought I'd mention that because I don't think it's, can't think it's on the box anywhere, but still. There you go. That comes with the Howling Banshees, and there's one for Drukhari. We'll have a look at the Drukhari one in its review. So let's start off with the Exarch first of all. This is the Exarch, lovely model. I've gone for probably the most uncompetitive loadout, maybe you want to call it, which is the Executioner blade. I should have really used the Triskele. But then again, Jane Zard's got the Triskele and didn't want to take any spotlight off of her. She might get a bit angry with me. But still, this blade looks pretty good. I like the pose. I like her arm stretched back outwards, like she's leaping. I like the action. I like the movement that Games Workshop have invested in designing these new Eldar Aspect Warriors, and I hope it continues. You know, I don't want all my Fire Dragons to look exactly the same. I don't want all my Striking Scorpions to look the same. You know, all my Sweeping Hawks. I want them all to have individuality, definitely. And if that means taking cues from the Harlequin range, then that is a bonus, in my opinion. Anyway, back to the model. Lovely, lovely detail, figure. Really captures that sense of movement and speed. Her head isn't really like looking at the spear, but there we go, maybe she's got her eyes set on another target. But you can have a helmeted version, a helmetless version, which I didn't really kind of like the look of. You can have her with pigtails or not. I mean, you know, like I say, you can have her with the mirror swords, the pistol and a Triskele, or the pistol and the spear. I think it works that way. Anyway, so yeah, plenty of options. We'll go through the spare parts after we've looked at each model individually. So that is the Exarch. Then you've got, from left to right, you've got 4 other Howling Banshees, if it'll focus. This one's all right. I like the fact that each one of them is on their own like scenic base thing. That's cool, but obviously if you're going to get another 5 of them, they're all going to be leaping off exactly the same bit of ruin. So it's going to be a bit of a pain to cut that off, clip around it and put it on your own rock maybe. That's the only downside of having kind of like some kind of little scenic base with every single kind of standard troop, I want to call them, infantry sized troop. Anyway, this one, you've got some little pouches and I think a magazine for the Shuriken Pistol, and a beautiful sword, lovely windswept kind of design. Again, really captures the ferocity and speed at which they kind of strike. Definitely the best aspect warriors I've seen for a long time, and I hope we're in for some more beautiful models. So then we've got this one. This one's sort of aiming. That one works, leaping but aiming. Got the sword outstretched. Yeah, again, a lot of movement and speed in this one. I love how like the cloths and the ribbons and the hair is all being windswept back. Really captures their speed. Yeah. And then this one's sort of swiping the sword down. They're all kind of moving. That's the thing I want to communicate, is they're all running at the enemy, swiping at the enemy, shooting at the enemy. They're all in that war action kind of pose. They're not just stood there with their sword out. They're not pointing at the stars. They're not in like a battle ready pose. They're all getting down to business, I want to say. This lady has her Shuriken Pistol backwards. You know, her arm out backwards, and is going to swipe down an enemy with her right hand. It seems like they're all right-handed as well, except for Jane Czar, who's got a spear in her left hand. That's interesting. Okay, and then this last Howling Banshee. Again, this is probably one of the weakest poses out of all of those four. Sort of like leaping up, but with a sword held high. Yeah, not my favourite pose out of all of them, but it still captures the leaping with the legs, and the Shuriken Pistol holsters. They're all empty, which is, yeah, obvious, but yeah. So there you go. That's all of the Howling Banshee models. I think they're really lovely. Let me show you the spare parts. Okay, so these are all the spare parts. It's mainly like the Exarch parts. You've got a foot on another bit of scenery. That's in case you wanted to make. By the way, these are all monopose, I have to say. You've got no real choice in where you want the swords to go or the pistols to go, or where they're leaping to. The Exarch can be made as a different Howling Banshee, so just bear that in mind, that if you're going to buy a second set of these, they're going to look exactly the same, except for the Exarch, which will be sort of Howling Banshee number 1, which has a different foot, it's on a less of a scenic base as well, and it'll have, I think it'll have a different sword. I think this sword, this is the sword for another Howling Banshee, but then these are the mirror swords. I think maybe, nope, I think this one possibly is it this one? I think her swords are sort of like that, like if she's doing like some kind of clothesline with them. But yeah, you've got 3 swords, 2 of which are the mirror swords for the Exarch, if you chose them to be that option. You've got Exarch helmets, a couple of different ones depending on the weapons that you've chosen. Let's just zoom into these because these are quite tricky to see, but yeah. So you've got that one, and you've got that one, which is quite cool. And you've got this one, which is just a normal Howling Banshee one. And you've got some different heads as well, so you don't have to have them with the helmets at all if you don't want to. So you've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 heads there. I'll just show you them. So that one. So they've still got their masks on, but just the top part of their heads are revealed. They all look very sort of similar in terms of the grills. Yeah, so 8 heads to get through. We're nearly there, guys. Oh, that one's shouting, so I think that's the Exarch. That's the final one there. So very similar, those 8 heads. You've got the Triskele for the Exarch. Looks alright. You've got a bit of hair, I think, for the other Howling Banshee. You've got the pistols, 2 pistols there that are separate. I think that's the Exarch one. Then you've got, yeah, the other hair and shoulder part for the Exarch, and then you've got a different set of armour for the Exarch too. So not a huge amount of extras when you think about it, and that's a similar number of extra parts as you get with the Dark Eldar Incubi models as well. But I always like to include you know, the extras and things that you get in these sets, in these reviews. Okay then, let's have a look at some size comparisons. So first of all, I just want to compare them to Jane Czar herself. Let's bring them up front and centre, and we'll see just how much she towers above them. She really does. She takes the front and centre place of all of them. Beautiful Phoenix Lord, and rightly so. She is front and centre, and will lead all your Howling Banshees. Again, it's just a shame that all your Howling Banshees are going to look exactly the same if you buy another set. That's why it might be good to have some of the older Howling Banshees. Not the last ones that they came out in Finecast. I really don't like them, although they share similar kind of weapon looks. I'm talking about these 3rd generation ladies. Look at these. Fantastic. This one's got the Executioner blade, and these work really well with the older models. You know, obviously they're on the smaller 25mm bases instead of these new 28mm bases, but height wise they're the same. They've got this lovely hair, not as much hair, but it's just flowing backwards. But yeah, they work really well. I mean, is that similar, but similar sort of pose there with this one. But I love the colour that I used for them, you know, these green blades and green hair and green cloths and things. But I love how elongated their helmets are. Really, really cool. So yeah, they work well with the older Howling Banshee models too. You know, side by side. Obviously there's a lot more movement in these, I think, because they're leaping off of things. You know, compare that Exarch with that one, and you see my point. But still, they hold up nonetheless. Okay, other Eldar models then. We could compare them to a Wraith Guard, which isn't really an aspect warrior, but yeah, they are clearly you know, a fair bit shorter than a Wraith Guard. Next to the Wraith Lord, again, sort of what you'd expect. Wraith Lord towers above these aspect warriors, and then next to the Dark Eldar, so brethren, next to the Dark Eldar cousins, you've got the Clavet, you've got the Incubi there. Incubi are probably just a little bit taller in terms of like the armour pieces on the back, and they definitely don't have as much movement, and you know, but they look more formidable, I want to say, more stoic than the Howling Banshees. And of course you've also got Grazar as well, which is only a bit taller than the Exarch, to be fair. Okay, they really work well with Incarn as well. There's Incarn having these surrounding it. Yeah, treat for the eyes, it really is. And then the final size comparison I want to do is just with some Imperial models. So you've got a Primaris there and a normal Space Marine here. And yeah, compared to the Exarch is taller, but compared to a normal Howling Banshee, there's not much in it at all. The head is definitely taller than the normal Howling Banshee, but with the sword just makes it taller. Normal Space Marine, of course, Howling Banshee is taller, and that's just because they're leaping off things. If they were stood up normally, I think they'd be similar size. I really would, in height, for a normal Space Marine and Howling Banshee. So there you go. Hope those size comparisons have helped. Okay then, so this is my part of the review where I will go through all of the rules for the new Howling Banshee models. Now then, their points cost stat line is exactly the same as what it was in the normal codex, so you don't need to rush out and buy you know, the new Blood of the Phoenix box set like you didn't with Jane Zar. Jane Zar had a different ability, an extra ability, but the Howling Banshees have got exactly the same. The only additional thing that they do have is just the Triskele for both shooting and melee for the Exarch. That's the only difference. But it's a full review, so I will go through their whole stat line and things as I normally do. So their power points cost over 3, they're 9 points each per model, which is very, very cheap. Their pistols are free. The power swords you have to pay for, which is 4, so they are costing 13 points each at the end of the day. Their movement speed is 8 inches, weapon skill and ballistic skill 3+, strength 3, toughness 3, 1 wound, 2 attacks, leadership 8 and a save of 4+. The Exarch has 2 wounds and has 3 attacks, but still has the same leadership. Interesting. The unit contains 5 Howling Banshees. It can include up to 5 additional Howling Banshees for a power rating of +3, so you can have 10 in a squad, and I'd typically go for that. A Howling Banshee Exarch can take the place of 1 Howling Banshee. Each model is equipped with Shuriken Pistol, Power Sword. Every model has a Banshee mask. So that's interesting that you can only have 1 Exarch, not per 5, but you know, for the 10. It doesn't say that you can have 1 each. I mean, technically you could take 2 squads of Howling Banshees and do it that way, but that's obviously 2 elite choices used up. So the Shuriken Pistol is a range 12-inch, pistol 1, strength 4, AP 0 and a damage 1, but because it's a Shuriken weapon, each time you make a wound roll of 6+ for this weapon, that hit is resolved with an AP of -3. Fantastic. That just a normal Shuriken Pistol, you know, can possibly have AP -3. Now, the Howling Banshee Exarch can be equipped with one of the following instead of 1 Power Sword. So 1 Executioner or 1 Triskele. So that takes the place of that Power Sword. The Howling Banshee Exarch can be equipped with 1 Mirror Swords instead of 1 Shuriken Pistol and 1 Power Sword. So you're knocking off the Power Sword for the Executioner or the Triskele, so you're still going to have that pistol, but then you're getting both the Mirror Swords, but you're taking away the pistol and the Power Sword. Now the Triskele works similar to Jane Zar's one in that it's got a shooting profile and a melee profile. So the shooting profile, range 12 inches, assault 3, strength 4, AP -2 and a damage of 1. In melee, it's the strength of the user, which will be 3, AP -2 and damage 1. It's important to know that Jane Zar's Triskele, the Silent Death, doesn't have a melee profile. Kind of sucks, but the Blade of Destruction is pretty good. Anyway, you can also equip the Exarch with this Executioner Spear, like I've given her, which is strength +1, which you need, so it's strength 4, AP -3, damage D3. That's very, very solid. It would have been nice if it was strength +2, because then it would be strength 5, and it wouldn't have taken anything off of Jane Zar's strength +2, you know, the strength 6 weapon, but still. You can equip her with the Mirror Swords, which is strength of the user, which is 3, unfortunately. AP -2, damage is only 1, but you can reroll hit rolls in the fight phase. So that might be worth going for, because she gets 3 attacks anyway, and her weapon skill is only 3+. I would have expected the weapon skills for these to be, well, at least for the Exarch to be 2+. But there we go. The Power Sword is just strength of the user, which again is only 3, but it is AP -3 and a damage of 1. Now, abilities. Ancient Doom, Battle Focus. I've talked about them in Jane Zar's review. Ancient Doom just means you can reroll hit rolls in the fight phase for the unit in which it charges or is charged by a Slanesh unit. However, you must add 1 to morale tests for this unit if it is within 3 inches of any Slanesh units. And Battle Focus is if the unit moves or advances in its movement phase, weapons, excluding heavy weapons, are used as if the unit had remained stationary. That's pretty good. Acrobatic. This unit can advance and charge in the same turn. In a turn in which it advanced, you can declare a charge move for this unit if there are any enemy units within 15 inches of it, and you can add 3 to the resulting charge roll. Fantastic. Exactly the same rule as Jane Zar has. You want to be moving these with her at the 8 inches, advancing and charging. This is what they're all about. Banshee Mask. Same as Jane Zar. Enemy units cannot fire. Overwatch at the unit, and then War Shout. Exactly the same again. Your opponent must subtract 1 from hit rolls in the fight phase for attacks that target a unit that includes a Howling Banshee Exarch. Now that's interesting. You have to have that Exarch in there to get that war shout. Would have been nice if you just had that anyway, but there we go. Keywords: Eldari, Asuryani, Aspect Warrior, Infantry, and Howling Banshees. So there you go. They're all the rules for the Howling Banshees. They haven't really changed from the profile in the Craft Worlds Codex, unfortunately, but you know, the Exarch, you can have that Triskele. I didn't equip mine with the Triskele because I like that damage of D3 and the strength of +1, but the Triskele itself is quite a good little weapon, especially the fact that it's Assault 3 and it's AP -2 with shooting or in combat. Overall, they are lovely looking models. I definitely think they're the best version of the Banshees. Slightly better than the old metal ones, and way better than the previous Finecast. In my opinion though, I just prefer the look of them. Rules wise though, they are a bit squishy. Their save is terrible at 4+. Their toughness and strength are both 3, which really will bog them down. They only get their 2 attacks. But they are fast, you know, moving, advancing and charging all in the same go is where they're going to shine, but they are going to get bogged down against higher toughness enemies with, say, like invulnerable saves and things. The best way to use them is with Jane Zard, definitely using that Cry of War unending ability that she brings to the party. If you're going to use them without Jane Zard, I'd strongly recommend you have 10 and try and bundle them in a Wave Serpent. I wouldn't feel comfortable leaving them out on an open battlefield because they're just going to get incinerated quite quickly. Anyway, what do you guys think of the models and the rules? Please do put it in the comments below. It'd be great to hear from you. Thank you ever so much for joining me today. Thank you for watching. Let the winds of fate guide your sword.